it's Mercedes. Welcome back to my channel, and if you are new, welcome to my channel. I apologize for the lighting and no makeup, no glasses. I didn't have to go into work until later today because Jasper is sick, so he can't be at daycare, so I can't be there because I had no one to watch him this morning. So I figured while I'm sitting here holding him because he's napping, why not make a video? So this is gonna be my how I found out that I was pregnant with baby number 2. I do have my original video on how I found out I was pregnant with Jasper when I was 17. For those of you that don't know, I was pregnant at 17 with my son, and I had him at 18. And now I got pregnant again at 18 in end of April, beginning of May, and I am now 19. So, pregnant at 17, pregnant at 18, having a baby at 18 and 19. Yeah. So, anyway, again, for those of you that don't know, his father and I are not together. We really haven't been much at all since he was born. He wasn't around at all for the pregnancy with Jasper after like 11 weeks. When Jasper was about 4 months old, I want to say, we started talking a little bit again. He had never met Jasper, he had never seen him, he had never asked to see him. We kind of started talking again, and that led to us getting back together. Maybe he was just 3 months old too at the time, almost 4 months old. And when I got pregnant with Jasper, we had been together for 2 years, so it wasn't like a new relationship or anything when we got pregnant with him. We were very comfortable with each other. And then we just didn't work out, and then eventually we decided to get back together when Jasper was little. So when we got back together, we saw each other, we'd stay at each other's houses every weekend, and I will admit it was very soon after we got back together that we decided to sleep together again, and I am very, very bad at birth control. And I know this now, so after this baby I am getting an IUD, and I'll make a whole separate video on like my choices and decisions and research and all that, on all of that kind of stuff and why I'm choosing what I'm choosing. But yeah, I'm really bad at birth control, so I had missed refilling I was on the NuvaRing at the time, and because I missed that, I was obviously not protected against pregnancy. So when we slept together, like, I looked at my app at the time and I was like, oh, I shouldn't have any problems, like, I'm not supposed to be fertile for a while, or I think I had just been done being fertile, like, I was a couple days after my fertile window, so I thought I was fine, because I'm obviously not very smart. And then the next morning I'm thinking about it and I'm like, wait, I just had a baby 4 months ago. My fertility's not normal. This app don't mean anything, because I had a period tracking app so that I knew when I was supposed to get my period. And that was what told me that I wasn't supposed to be fertile. But for those of you that have had children, or for those of you that haven't, after you have a baby, you're really fertile for like 6 months or longer. Depends on your situation, whether you're breastfeeding, all that kind of stuff. There's a bunch of stuff that goes into it. So I texted my 2 best friends, Shanna and Gina, and I was like, guys, I'm really dumb, I don't know what to do. I didn't want to go out and spend the money on a morning after pill when I really didn't think that I would have ended up pregnant. So I didn't. And I don't regret not doing that, obviously, because now I have my daughter as well, and I love her, and I mean, she's not here yet, but I will love her just the same as I love her brother. But I could have definitely made some smarter decisions about that time, because I definitely wasn't ready for a second baby. Yeah, so fast forward about 2 weeks later, right around the time that I'm supposed to get my period. I think it was like actually a week and a half-ish later, because like I said, it was technically outside of my midway point in my cycle. So it was like a week and a half later, I was supposed to get my period like the next day. I was at work, and I work at a daycare, so I was in a room. I think I was in the baby room the first time it happened that day, but I got really dizzy standing up, and that happens to me a lot. It's nothing really new. But that time thankfully I wasn't holding a baby or anything, but I dropped to the floor, blacked out completely. So I kind of shake it off, and I'm like, okay. And I was doing breaks that day, so I was almost done in that room, finished up what I was doing. The teacher that was supposed to be in that room came back, and then I went to the 2-year-old room. Almost as soon as I got into that room, the same thing happened. And I was like, okay, that's twice now. I work with kids. That's probably not a very good thing. So I called my boss from the room I was in. I called into the office, and I was like, hey, can you or Janice come down here? And my boss, Allie, was like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. And I explained what happened, and they're like, yeah, that's not good. So they had another teacher come in and cover me, and I went and called my doctor to see what they wanted me to do. They wanted me to come in just to be seen, checked out. So I went in, and while I was talking to her, she did my vitals and everything looked fine. And they did some blood work and stuff. And I asked her, I'm like, could this be something happening if I was pregnant? And she's like, is that a possibility? And I'm like, yeah. So she's like, it could be. So we'll do that. So they did a pregnancy test. And then they came back in the room and they're like, well, I don't know, good news or bad news for you. You can decide whether it's good news or bad news. But it was negative, so you're not pregnant. I was relieved because obviously I only had a 4-month-old at the time. I wasn't trying to get pregnant again, so it was good news at the time. But then I went back to work for the rest of the day. I felt for the most part fine. They called me later and they were like, your sugars are low, so just make sure you're eating enough. That's probably why you passed out. So then I went about my day like normal. I was supposed to get my period the next day. And normally, when I get my period, I get it overnight, so I'll wake up in the morning with it. And I didn't wake up in the morning with it. So I was like, okay, weird. They told me yesterday I wasn't pregnant, and my cycles are pretty spot on normally. But I had just had Jasper, so I was like, well, it's not a huge deal. The doctor's office would know if I was pregnant. Their tests wouldn't be wrong. Well, now I found out that they use the really cheapy tests most doctor's offices do until you get a blood test done. So I had a pregnancy test at home because I was planning on taking one if my period didn't come anyway, because I knew it was a possibility. So I went in the bathroom and I took a pregnancy test, and my boyfriend at the time was in the shower, and I told him I was taking one. So I'm standing in the bathroom, he's in the shower, and I think the first one that I used was a dropper test. And, rewind. A couple days prior, I decided to just take one because, what was my reasoning? I think it was because I was leaking, my boobs were leaking, and I hadn't had that since I stopped breastfeeding him, in months. So it was weird for me, and I texted my mom, and I was like, is this normal? I had just gotten out of the shower, I think, and then they were leaking. And she's like, oh, yeah, I still get that sometimes. I'm like, oh, okay, well, your last kid was born 9 years ago, so it must be normal. But I took one anyway, and I thought maybe I saw the faintest line, but no one else saw it. So I was like, okay, whatever, then I'm just blind. And then the following day or the day after was when I passed out and went to the doctor. And then the following day after that was the day I was supposed to get my period and took a test. And pretty much right away, a line came up. And it was just one of those dropper tests, those cheapy, 80-something cent ones from Walmart, little purple things. And I was like, well, what the heck? Okay. So I was like, to my boyfriend, I was like, that's positive. That's not just maybe positive, that's positive. And he's looking at it and he's like, oh. So I had a digital first response one, so I took that right away after because I was like, well, that's a positive. I'm taking this one to be sure. So I took the digital one, and when I did the dropper, you have to pee in a cup for that, I didn't think it was going to be positive, so I just poured the pee out right away. instead of saving the cup for a confirmation if I needed it. And I didn't have to pee anymore, and that was my first morning urine, so I didn't want to waste it. So I, like, used that darn stick, and I, like, smeared it around the cup to get all the little droplets that were still there, hoping it'd be enough pee, and, like, it wasn't working at first. And then I finally must have gotten enough on there because it worked. And then I waited, and it showed the little clock thing saying it was working, and then it popped up with a yes, and I was like, now what? So, first thing I did was call the doctor's office right away. I called them and I was like, I came in yesterday, I had passed out, and I asked the doctor to do a pregnancy test, and they told me it was negative, but now this morning I didn't get my period, so I took one and it was positive. So then they're like, okay, we're going to have you come in again for another one. And then I texted my mom right away, and she texted me, like, are you kidding me? And she told me, and they told me that I was going to come in the next day for blood work. And then Mom told me to tell her what they said right away, and I told her, well, yeah, I'm going to, obviously. So I don't have some video on how I told my mom, because I tell my mom these things right away. And I right away also texted my friends Shanna and Jean again, and I was like, so this happened. And they were, like, shocked, because I just told them the day before that when I went to the doctor that they told me that I wasn't pregnant. So I went to the doctor the next day again, and they did their blood work, and they got back to me and told me that, yeah, you're pregnant. So their test was wrong the first day. So if you ever go to the doctor and they tell you that you're not pregnant, don't believe them right away, unless you get a blood test done. So I will never trust another urine test at a doctor's office. So yeah, that is the story of how I found out that I was pregnant the second time. So I will be making a video on how I told the rest of my family, probably later this weekend sometime. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video.